I'm sure you're familiar with the trauma responses fight or flight. You might even be familiar with freeze, but are you familiar with the least discussed trauma response, fawn? In this episode, I discuss the fawn response and how it might be showing up in your life. Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, Season 4, where we are focusing on mastery. The last 3 seasons, I gave you the information. Now, we're focusing on integrating it into our lives and embodying it. If you are ready to master your thoughts, emotions, and patterns to feel whole, fulfilled, and really grounded in who you are without dimming your shine so you can live the abundant life that you truly desire, then you are in the right place. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? If you are joining me for the first time, first let me say welcome. And although M&Ms are really yummy candies, it actually stands for Magical Manifestors. And this podcast is all about manifesting the life of your dreams, but not by saying affirmations every day. It's by really diving deep into our patterns, our shadows, our habits, our trauma. And sometimes people don't want to dig deep and they just stay in autopilot and try to ignore what's going on in our core, like deep below the surface, the stuff that we swept under the rug and stuffed in the back of the closet. But I am someone who wants to be aware of that stuff under the rug and whatever I stuffed in the back of the closet, so I can heal, so I can feel whole, and so I can expand into the person that I am destined to be. And so this podcast is all about sharing my journey, my discoveries, and hopefully it encourages you to see what's under your rug or stuffed in the back of your closet and heal and grow and expand with me so we can live the abundant life that we truly desire and are worthy of. So this episode is all about fawn, and you may be thinking, what the hell is fawn? So first I want to express tremendous gratitude to my business therapist, Nicole Keeber. She has a book, Love Your Business, and she is a phenomenal coach, therapist, speaker, author, all the things. And I did one of her programs, her Do No Harm program, and she talked about the fawn response. So we're familiar with fight, flight, and probably freeze, but it's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And my first time hearing this is when I did her program. This is the benefit of having therapists and having quality coaches and really seeking out the information that we don't know as to why we are the way that we are. It's really powerful. Like, knowledge is power, wisdom is power. So I'm definitely someone who geeks out on emotional intelligence, and I love understanding how our brains operate, how our energy operates. So this was really interesting to me, and I did this program with Nicole. Oh my goodness, it had to be years ago, but it really sunk in how it actually shows up in my life and in my business recently. And I reached out to her and I was like, oh my God, it literally just clicked. So I heard her speak about it years ago, but sometimes it takes us time for things to really sink in and for us to like truly embody the lesson. Like, you could hear the lesson, you can learn the lesson, but truly embodying the lesson. And so when it hit me, like, oh my God, this is my pattern. And I was like, it makes so much sense. And so you hear something, but when it really makes sense, it's like this like massive light bulb that goes off in your mind. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the fawn trauma response. And I realized my pattern, this is what I call it, fawn to fizzle. So we'll talk about what fawn actually is, but I realized that I'm someone who gets like really excited about new friendships, new relationships, new people that work for me. I don't want to say employees because anyone that works for me is an independent contractor. but we'll just say new staff. We'll say new staff. That sounds better than independent contractor. New staff, I get really excited about them, and I'm like super complimentary, and I'm super excited about them. Like even with new friends, I'm like, oh my God, this is my new bestie. And I get really, really excited, and then it fizzles out. And so I realize that that's the fawn response. It's this and I fawn over people, and people fawn over me. So when people fawn over me, it allows me to let my guard down, and then I lack boundaries. And then when kind of that newness wears off, then that is when I set boundaries, and then the person's like, but wait, hold up. I didn't sign up for this. You know, I signed up for the bubbly, over complimentary person, and now you're setting boundaries. Like, I don't want that, you know? And so when I had this conversation with Nicole, I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And it makes so much sense as to why I do it, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So let's dive into what fawn actually is. And so this episode is going to be a lot of research. It's very research based, and then I'll share my personal experience with it. So what is the fawn trauma response? So fawning is a trauma response where a person develops people-pleasing behaviors to avoid conflict and to establish a sense of safety. In other words, the fawn response is a type of coping mechanism that survivors of complex trauma adopt to appease their abusers. So what is complex trauma? So complex trauma describes both children's exposure to multiple traumatic events, often an invasive interpersonal nature, and the wide-ranging long-term effects of this exposure. So these are events that can be abuse or profound neglect, basically. So it stems from our childhood. Obviously, we always talk about how everything goes back to our childhood. But in a nutshell, fawning is the use of people-pleasing to diffuse conflict, feel more secure in relationships, and earn the approval of others. So if you've heard me talk about like my mom, and my mom and I are in a really good place. So I'm not saying this, you know, to say anything bad about my relationship with my mom, but my mom was very critical growing up. And so I was always trying to be better to receive her approval, and I never did. And so that carried over into my adult life, where I was constantly seeking the approval of others and constantly seeking that validation. So if you're someone who is seeking validation, and obviously all of this is subconscious, so if you're not someone who actively works on self-awareness, it may not even be in the forefront of your mind. But obviously, if you have a therapist, a coach, or energy healer, someone like myself that's like helping you see your blind spots, then you'll know this about yourself. But if you're constantly seeking the approval of others, and you shift who you are to appease others, so you feel more secure in that relationship. So this is also abandonment issues. I mean, it runs deep. It's basically trying to create safety in the connection by essentially mirroring the imagined expectations and desires of other people. So if you think that this person wants someone easygoing, and this shows up in dating. And I realized this in dating, where I show up as like easygoing and like super laid back, because typically that's what guys want. And then when they really get to know me, they're like, holy shit, she's high maintenance. So I just realized like how I show up in the beginning of this like fawning, and then it fizzles out because they're like, okay, she's not as easygoing as I thought she was. I mean, have you met me? Like, I mean, I'm easygoing to an extent, but like I do have boundaries, I do have expectations, and I know expectations is something that's debatable, because people are like, oh, don't expect anything from anyone. But I'm like, no, I expect respect. I expect people to respect my boundaries. I expect honesty. You know, like these are like basic, like be a good human expectations. So do I expect someone to move mountains for me? Like, no, but that's usually like some form of gaslighting. Let me not get off topic. So basically, fawning is people pleasing. And I think that I would always talk about people pleasing and like, don't people please. But I never really realized how I people please until I really started to pay attention to how my energy and my demeanor shifted around certain people that I was trying to stay safe with, you know? So like, if you had a critical parent that will criticize you and say things that are really gonna hurt you, and mostly it's hurting your inner child, it's not hurting your adult self, then you kind of close up if you're around this parent. And it may not just be a parent, it could be a friend, it could be a partner, it could be a coworker. But if you find yourself closing up to try to stay safe in that connection, you don't feel like you can be yourself, that's a form of people pleasing. And I realized like there's so many things about myself that I hide because society has told me it was unlovable, you know, be more relatable and like don't be as intimidating and like all these things. So I've shrank over the years, not now, but I'm just talking about like realizing my pattern over the years. I shrank to accommodate people. Shrinking and dimming your light is an example of fawning. You are shrinking to not offend or intimidate or outshine someone. But it's like, I don't even believe in outshining, because when you shine your light bright, it doesn't dim someone else's light. It illuminates everything around you. So, whew, you guys, I got chills. I am on a roll. Let me dive into this article. I'm going to try to stay on topic, but I feel so passionate about this. I'm sure you can tell. I feel so passionate about this because this was like a huge aha moment. That's why I'm like, I have to express gratitude for Nicole Lewis-Keeber, because she has not only saved my sanity, but she saved my business. And when I started out doing her Do No Harm program, it's a trauma-informed program. And then I did her training on Brene Brown's material. And then I started doing like Voxer coaching with her as my business therapist. And through the time that I've been working with her, I've gone through some really challenging things in my business. And if it wasn't for her, I probably would have lost my mind and shut down my business. So when you start peeling the layers back of how trauma is actually showing up in your business, just like any type of healing, if you're like, okay, I'm ready to heal this, the universe is like, oh, really? Bam, and puts it right in your face. So that's exactly what happened in my business. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to like work out these kinks of where trauma's showing up in my business. And then it was like, bam, this in your face, bam, this in your face. And I was just like, whoa, I wasn't ready. Like, can we slow down with the lessons and the healing and the growth just for a moment? Let me catch my breath. But she really supported me, like fully supported me through all of my challenges. And just realizing how this fawning has shown up in my business and my personal life, like literally my whole entire life. And so this lesson for me is so freaking powerful. I'm like, I have to share it because this is huge, huge. Okay, so let's dive in. I did a little research on this and I found a really great article on Healthline written by Sam Dylan Finch. So shout out Sam for writing this amazing article. It's 7 subtle signs your trauma response is people pleasing. So number 1 is you struggle to feel seen by others. If you're a fawn type, you're likely very focused on showing up in a way that makes those around you feel comfortable and in more toxic relationships to avoid conflict. So either you're trying to avoid conflict and feel safe, so you're hiding who you are, you're hiding parts of you because you want to remain safe in a situation and safe in a connection, or you're trying to make those around you feel comfortable. So that's shrinking for the comfort of others. So for me, because I've always been told like I'm too much, I'm so extra, and like I have this like bigger than life personality that I've had to really tone down because it has been very overwhelming and intimidating for people. So I shrink to make people around me feel comfortable. But we're not doing that anymore. So if you're listening to this and you're someone who shrinks, let's commit to stop that right now. Okay? Are you with me? Are you going to commit with me? Like, shine your light as bright as freaking possible, because like I said, it illuminates everyone around you. It lifts everyone around you. So shrinking for the comfort of others is not only doing yourself a disservice, you're doing a disservice to the other person as well. So anyway, back to Sam's article. The downside to this is that you're not necessarily being your most authentic self. The more you fawn and appease others, the more you likely are to feel unknown to others, even in your close relationships. No one sees your authentic self. It can lead to feelings of being misunderstood, and I've always felt misunderstood my whole entire life, but I'm like, but am I showing people who I really am at my full brightness? No, so how are they gonna understand me? This makes so much sense. That's why I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. Like reading this, I'm just like, this is the story of my life. But it's like, fawn no more. We're ending this pattern. So it's so deep. Okay, he says, if no one sees your authentic self, it can lead to feelings of being misunderstood and even resenting the fact that no one really sees you. So resentment is something that shows up in our body. Obviously, the work that I do, I'm always helping people release things like shame and resentment. You don't hear people say, like they don't name it, like I feel shame, I'm experiencing shame, I feel shame in my body. You don't hear people say that, but we have so much shame stored in our body. We have so much resentment stored in our body. My body too, I've definitely been working on releasing any resentment that I have. And the good thing with the work that I do now is I sense it, I feel it. And so now that I feel it, I'm like, I can release it, I can choose not to feel that resentment. And usually not feeling resentment requires boundaries. So it's uncomfortable sometimes to set boundaries that you know are going to make other people not happy with you, but it's like, choose that uncomfortableness over resentment, because the resentment is toxic in your body. So set the boundary. It may be uncomfortable. And I've had situations where, you know, I set a boundary and I felt bad, but feeling a little bad because you set a boundary is way better than resentment later, because resentment is toxic in your body and it will turn into a physical ailment if it's not released. So back to the article. So the painful irony is that oftentimes you're the one obscuring their ability to see you in the first place. So it's my decision to shrink for the comfort of others. And so it's really me choosing to not be seen, you know? No one says, oh, I want you to shrink because you make me uncomfortable. Your light makes me uncomfortable, so please shrink. Please don't be. Now I will say, someone like me, I wear full sequence outfits. Like I am like that person on a regular basis. Like Tuesday morning, I'm in a full sequence outfit. You know, sometimes people see me and they're like, oh my God, is it your birthday? No, this is a normal Tuesday for me. But what I have is women that'll say, oh my God, you're so dressed up. I just have on this little old thing. And that used to make me feel uncomfortable. So then I would feel like, oh, let me not wear my full sequence outfit because I don't want to make other women feel uncomfortable. I don't want to feel uncomfortable because other women feel uncomfortable with me, right? But I'm like, that's not my problem. Wearing full sequence outfits makes me happy. So if you're uncomfortable and then I allow it to make me uncomfortable, then we're both uncomfortable and no one's shining. What good does that do? It doesn't do any good. So I rock my full sequence outfit, and hopefully rocking it and owning it gives her whoever her is that is acknowledging my full sequence outfit, the courage and the motivation to rock some sequins too. And then we all win. You rock some sequins, I rock some sequins, we all feel fabulous, and it literally illuminates everyone around us because everyone's like, oh, okay, let's all step up together rather than all shrinking together. Whew. Okay, you guys. Look at this. I am fired up about this topic. Something about this fawn, this fawn realization has me worked up. I just love those like aha moments where like something just like really clicks and you're like, oh, I get it now. Okay, back to the article. So, number 2 is you don't know how to say no to people. Fawn types are almost always stretched thin. This is because they're so eager to make other people happy, they blurt out, of course, yes, before it even occurs to say, I can't right now, or no thanks. So, the catchphrase may be something like, it's no trouble at all, really. I say, no problem, but boundaries, it goes back to boundaries. So one thing I will also share, if you are new to this podcast, I always have healing frequencies in the background. And the healing frequency that I am putting in the background of this episode specifically is to heal the solar plexus. So our self-worth, confidence, boundaries, courage, that all sits in our solar plexus. And so if you're listening to this and any of this is resonating with you, then doing some solar plexus work to activate and balance that chakra is really going to help out. And listening to this podcast alone, the healing frequencies will set in and you will start to activate and balance that chakra. So number 3 is you're either spewing emotions out of nowhere or unloading them onto distant strangers. You want to make those closest to you happy, which means you're reluctant to open up when you're struggling. So you only do so when you're at the brink of total breakdown because you've had it and you held it in for far too long. On the other hand, distance makes it easier to have those feelings too. So he says, a kind stranger in the bar? Sure, I'll tell you all about my trauma. This is totally me. I don't speak to the people closest to me about my emotions and feelings because I'm afraid of losing them, right? I feel I have this fear that if I speak up, I'm gonna lose the people, but the people that I barely know, I'm like, sure, yeah, we can talk about my feelings because I'm not as attached to them. So he actually says we need an outlet for our emotions, but having emotions can be so off-putting, right? So we unload them onto people we aren't yet invested in that we won't see again, or where it's a safe distance, like social media, for example, or this podcast. So that way, if someone bails on us for being messy or too much, he actually says too much, and that's like my thing. That's like my biggest thing that I've had to like overcome is that feeling of being too much, otherwise known as being human. We all literally are all too much in some way. It's just some people suppress it more than others, and they get used to that suppressed version of them. They get used to that suppressed version of them. They settle into this suppressed version of themselves and they just stay there. And that's how they live the rest of their lives. But let me just tell you, I am not about that life. A suppressed life, no thank you. No thank you. So back to Sam. I wonder what Sam would say if he actually listened to this podcast episode. Like, this girl is worked up over this article. It's so good though. So it's all in appreciation because it's speaking to me volumes. Okay, so it stings less and the stakes don't feel as high. So basically, you don't express your emotions to the people closest to you until you like explode. It's like a volcano. My therapist, not Nicole Lewis-Keeper. So I have 2 therapists. I have a business therapist and a regular therapist. My regular therapist said that when you suppress emotions, it's like a volcano. You don't suppress them and they just stay down forever. You suppress them and they freaking either explode or they turn into a physical ailment, and it's like your body releases it through illness. And we don't want that either. We don't want you to explode, and we don't want you to have illness. So it's so important that you are honoring your emotions and expressing it to the people in your life. And I always say in my meditations, having social courage. So speaking your truth, even at the risk of rejection or disapproval. And that's something I literally just got chills. It's something that I've been working on, really speaking my truth and really being who I am. And I'm always who I am, but a very suppressed version of myself. I show people the qualities and attributes that I think that they would love, but it's like, I'm a little challenging. I'm super analytical. I do have higher expectations than like the normal person. And it's not that I have higher expectations, it's that I speak on my expectations while other people stay silent. And this is so funny. I actually talked about this in our sisterhood sound bath last night. So we do like a little goddess circle every Tuesday at Bliss Bar Meditation Studio. And we discuss, we pull an oracle card and we discuss what the oracle card means to us. And I pulled a card that talked about, man, this is deep. I'm going to keep it really short so I can get back to this article. But I pulled a card that basically talked about the consequences of like talking too much, you know, like your words have consequences. And with the business divorce that I'm going through, there were some things that made me feel like, dang, I shouldn't have said this thing. But then I thought about it and I'm just like, my whole entire life I've been silenced. It wasn't safe for me to share my opinion or speak my truth or share my emotions or feelings. And I'm like, I'm not being silenced anymore. And that's probably why I have a podcast. That's probably why I feel the need to express every single thing that I feel now, because I've been silenced so much in my earlier life. But I will not be silenced. And again, going back to Nicole Lewis-Keeber and the Brene Brown program that I did, Brene Brown says, leaders are never quiet about important things. And when I heard that, I was like, yes. And I actually thought about people like Wendy Williams, for example. I don't know if you know who Wendy Williams is, but she was known for gossiping. But she has a net worth of like 20 million now for her talk shows for gossiping. So sometimes the things that we're condemned for the most, me talking too much, is the thing that winds up being our superpower. Because think about how powerful this podcast is. 3 years strong, we have listeners in over 20 countries, and I literally have people come in that's like, you have changed my life. So there's a lady that just came in and brought me this beautiful resin art, and she's like, you have changed my life. So imagine if I let people silence me and I don't have this podcast and I didn't impact the people who I've impacted. Do not dull your shine for anyone. Do not fawn. We're not fawning anymore. No more fawning. And I know that it's a trauma response, so obviously easier said than done, because there's going to be some work and healing that needs to be done around it to not fawn anymore. But this awareness at least starts the process. It starts the process. All right, so back to the article, number 4, because it's seven subtle signs your trauma response is people pleasing. So we're on number 4. Number 4 is you feel guilty when you're angry at other people. You might make a lot of excuses for the lousy behavior of other people. I do this so much. Defaulting in self-blame. Oh my goodness, my therapist points this out to me all the time, like all the time. I make excuses for the shitty behavior. And when you start to really know your worth and you start to set those healthy boundaries and stop allowing the shitty behavior, you realize who falls away. And I've been talking about this in other ways for the last, 10 episodes. Like, when I started setting healthy boundaries in my life, people fell away. When I started speaking up like, hey, this didn't really feel good. Like, I'm not gonna let you gaslight me. I'm not gonna let you talk to me like shit. When I started speaking up for myself, people fell away. There's some people that are still around, and those are the OGs, like those are my people, but there are a lot of people that fell away. And you know what? I had to be like, bye. There was a part of me that's like, oh no, go back and hold on to this person, because it hurts. But I'm like, no, what I want to hold on to is me. What I want to hold on to are my values. What I want to hold on to is my self-worth. Okay? I am too worked up over this freaking concept of fawning because it clicked in my brain and I was like, oh my God. This is, now I will say, so fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Now, I'm from New York. When I was in New York, fight probably was my trauma response. But I'm a mature adult now. I can't fight anyone now, I don't think that freeze is something that I do because I always feel like I have to move. Like I have to be moving. I have to be doing something, but that's so much programming from today's society. So flight, I do like to run away from things. Every now and then I get in my feelings and I'm like, you know what? I'm moving out the country. I'm out of here. I'm gone. I'm moving out the country. But I never actually do. So fight was one of my trauma responses. Flight, every now and then I threaten to move out of the country to myself or my therapist, like not to anyone in my life. But the thought crosses my mind often when I get frustrated, but I don't actually do it. Fight, flight, freeze. So freeze is not one because I'm always like, I gotta move, gotta keep going. But I'm realizing that fawn is my default trauma response. Like this is the one that I've like settled into the most and I didn't even have awareness around it. So I have total awareness where I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm moving to Thailand. I'm moving to Bali. Like I have total awareness like, okay, when I start talking about closing up shop and moving to Bali, there's a problem. Let me sit with what I'm experiencing. Let me deal with it. But the fawn trauma response was totally unconscious for me. Totally. I did not realize I did this. Okay, so we were on number 4. Let me focus for the rest of these. So number 4, you feel guilty when you're angry at the other person. You may make a lot of excuses for lousy behavior of other people, defaulting to self-blame. You might get angry only to feel like an actual monster for having feelings at all. So you feel like a monster for being mad at someone treating you poorly. You might even feel like you're not allowed to be upset with other people. If you struggle to get mad at people, opting instead to blame yourself or justify someone's cruddy behavior, you're actually fawning because you're pushing your feelings down and rewriting the story all in an effort to appease the other person involved. This shows up so much. So I want you to really sit with this concept. Like the last time someone did something shitty to you, but you rewrote the story in your head to take the blame to appease the other person. It could be out of the fear of safety. You don't want to deal with conflict. It could be out of fear of abandonment. You don't want them to leave you. But this is not a healthy pattern. That is not a healthy connection if you do not feel safe to express how you feel. And allowing cruddy, lousy, shitty behavior is not okay. You deserve a healthy relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a business relationship, whether it is a romantic relationship. You deserve to be surrounded by people that you can express how you feel and it be safe and taken seriously. Like your feelings are valid. Your feelings are valid. So start to notice the next time you rewrite a story to appease someone else. And it could be out of it could be out of safety. It could be out of the fear of conflict. It could be out of the fear of abandonment. But it's still something to be aware of because that's not a healthy pattern. Number 5 is you feel responsible for other people's reactions. Sometimes I just let other people make decisions on where we go and what we do together because if something goes wrong, I don't want it to be because I failed to make a good choice. We're trying to anticipate someone else's happiness because deep down we feel responsible for it. And we're trying everything in our power to ensure that the people we care about aren't disappointed. we are not responsible for other people's happiness. I remember Will Smith said this about Jada Pinkett Smith. He was like, I'm not responsible for Jada's happiness. Jada's responsible for Jada's happiness. And he received a lot of flack for that, a lot. But I'm like, he's right. I mean, obviously everyone's gonna have their own perspective, but us as individuals, like Niajae, I am responsible for Niajae's happiness. And I cannot control someone else's happiness. We can do everything in our power to make someone else happy. And if they don't want to be happy, they're not going to be happy. They are responsible for their happiness. So when we try to take responsibility for other people's reactions, we're only setting ourselves up for disappointment. And fawning, it sets you up for disappointment. That's just the reality of it. Number 6 is you find yourself compromising your values. This is huge, you guys. This is huge. This can be difficult to notice at first. You might think of yourself as being agreeable, good at compromise, easy to get along with. That is one that I would try to do. I would try to be easy to get along with. And how many times have I betrayed myself to be easy to get along with? I stopped doing that. You know, even now, I'm like, sometimes I'm just like, oh, it's fine, we can do like whatever you want. But I'm learning the fine nuance of really owning who I am, what I want, what I value, what's important to me, and also honoring what other people want. Because sometimes it's two totally different things. And I'll give you an example. Because there's going to be times where you just need to own what you want. And there's going to be times where, like, if it's about the other person, honor what they want, right? This is a simple example, but one of my friends, it was her birthday recently, and I wanted to take her to this like beautiful, luxurious spa. And I mean, I also wanted to go to the spa too, but I'm like, I want to experience this like beautiful, luxurious spa with her, because in my mind, like, this would make any woman feel like amazing and fabulous and like a goddess. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing for your birthday? I want to take you out. And she was like, oh, I just want to go to the beach and do like this like hippie boho thing, like picnic at the beach with like all my friends. And so the old me would have been like, oh no, but I want to take you to the spa, because I always insert like my narrative. But in this case, this isn't fawning, but this is a case where like, it's not like, okay, let me be very clear on what I'm trying to say here. So if you realize that you fawn, it's not saying tell everyone no and only do what you want to do to make sure you're not people pleasing. It's not about that, because there's going to be times where you do have to compromise, because you have to honor what the other person wants. So I don't want anyone to take this and just be like, I'm going to say no to everything. I had this conversation with my mom recently about her saying no. And she's just like, I'm just going to tell everyone no. That's not what she said. I'm being funny. But it's not about just saying no to everyone and only doing what you want to do. It's understanding, like, okay, these are my boundaries. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what I value. This is what's important to me. This is my level of integrity. And then also paying attention to the people in your life and like honoring what they want as well. And sometimes you will be on different pages, and that's okay. So in this specific situation, I had to stop and be like, okay, it's her birthday. I have to honor what she wants. She doesn't want luxurious spa. She wants hippie boho beach picnic. So I did hippie boho beach picnic because it was her birthday and I needed to honor what she wanted. So compromise sometimes is very, very important. So for this one specifically, being good at compromise, knowing the difference, and this is really, really important, knowing the difference between compromising because you have to honor what that person wants, if it's their birthday, if it's, you know, something that focuses more on them, versus people pleasing. And discernment is huge. Discernment sits in our third eye chakra. If you don't receive enough energy in your third eye chakra, your discernment is going to be a little distorted. So when I do the energy analysis at Bliss Bar, we see like how much energy is being dispersed in each chakra. And I see a lot of people that don't have enough energy circulating in their third eye chakra. That's our clarity, our perspective, perception. That's our discernment. That's our awareness. So it's really important to be able to discern and decipher like what is good compromise and what's people pleasing. So I just wanted to give that example so no one is taking this as like, oh, if I compromise, I'm people pleasing, because in certain situations, relationships require compromise. So just being a little clear on that. So if you pay attention to the conversations you're having, you may notice if you're a little too agreeable to the point of validating viewpoints that you don't really fully agree with. Sometimes it's benign things like saying you don't have a preference for where you go to dinner when you actually do. Other times it's a deeper issue like validating a perspective or behavior that you don't agree with. If you find yourself sitting on the fence as to not upset anyone, you're likely fawning to some degree. So I've definitely found myself doing this, like not speaking about certain topics to not offend people. There's a lot of topics. I feel like being a feminist, recently I said on a podcast, I'm not a feminist. And I think that was something that I probably wouldn't have said before because I would have been like, oh, I'm going to piss someone off. But, I have my beliefs, my personal belief. I don't think women should box. Like the thought of like someone hitting a woman in her face disturbs me. I don't think women should be janitors. There's certain things that I personally feel like women shouldn't do. Not because we can't, because hello, we're powerful as fuck, but because I think like as a woman, you shouldn't do these things. That's my personal view, and I'm sure it enrages someone. So I have found myself being agreeable on topics like this to avoid conflict. But what I realize is if you stand for something, you are going to be polarizing. And this is something I've had conversations at length with my business therapist about, because I had a fear of being polarizing because I didn't want conflict. And that's the inner child in me that's like craving safety. But I realized it caused me not to speak out about topics that I felt really passionate about. So I've been really honoring how I feel, and if a woman wants to box, that is her prerogative. But just because I personally don't feel like they should, that's my personal view, whatever, do you, do you, but just really being able to own my views and my values and not feeling like I have to back down because I'm afraid of upsetting someone. Like I will never reach the level of success that I know I'm capable of if I'm afraid to ruffle some feathers. Every successful person that has an opinion, that's a disruptor, that's making waves in the world, they're polarizing. And I've had to accept that. So fawning is like the complete opposite of being polarizing. And I realized that this is why I fear being polarizing, because I'm always trying to people please to get people to like me, so my inner child feels safe. So one of the things that I've been working a lot on lately for my own healing is working on loving my inner child. And it's done wonders for me. I just created a inner child healing sound bath at my studio, and I think that I found this formula that works really, really well for me, doing inner child healing and also nurturing my divine feminine. So because I run a business, it's a very masculine energy. And when I'm taking action and making decisions and getting shit done, it's a very masculine energy. So when I go home, I put on some lingerie, I put on some candles, I put on some soothing music, something sexy. Sabrina Claudio, if you're looking for sexy music, Sabrina Claudio. check it out. You're welcome. And, you know, I have roses all over my house. I have plants. I put on my LED light. I always have it on green. Green is a heart chakra. So remembering to keep my heart open, because sometimes when we're doing business, we can like stuff our feelings down to get things done. Like I can't feel right now because I have this crazy to-do list and go. So making sure that my heart remains open, making sure I'm nurturing my divine feminine. So loving on my inner child, nurturing my divine feminine, that is a formula that works so freaking well for me. So well. So I know I got way off track. We were on number 6. If you find yourself sitting on the fence as to not upset anyone, you're likely fawning to some degree. So I don't like things being on the fence. I remember a long time ago, my first international trip, actually, I did an aerial and yoga retreat in Costa Rica, and it was hosted by Christine Van Loo, who's now a really good friend. I totally adore this woman. One of the things that she said that stuck with me all these years, I mean, I'm talking like this was probably a decade ago, it stuck with me my whole life since then, is if it's not a hell yes, then it's a fuck no. I always say like, it has to be a hell yes. I don't say the fuck no part because I try to minimize my cursing. Obviously I curse, but I try to minimize it. So if it's not a hell yes, it's a no, period. And so not living your life on the fence. You know, I want to be certain, and we're not always certain about everything, but I want to be certain about as many things as possible. And sometimes we're wrong. You know, we could feel certain about something and sometimes we're wrong, but there's lessons in that. So when it comes to anything, I don't want someone that's on a fence. I don't want someone that's like, oh, take it or leave it. You know, in any way, whether it's a friend, whether it's a lover, whether it's business, like I want someone that's like, yes, I want you. I need your service. I need you in my life. I need you by my side. I need you in my corner. Like I want someone that's certain about that. And there's so many people that are not certain. They're just kind of blowing in the wind, take what life gives them. Like they're not solid in who they are, what they want, their values. They're not solid in their self-worth. It's just like, oh, whatever happens. Like, no. Like, own what you want. Own who you are. Own your gifts. Own your skills. Like, I mean, even own your shadows. Like, I've had to own my shadows lately. Like, okay, let's sit with this. Like, I know my shadows, I know my toxic patterns, but it's like, show up and own it. Right now, I'm owning my fawning. I realize I do this. So number 7 is sometimes you disassociate in social situations. This is huge. There's so much disassociation right now in today's society. It is insane. Disassociating can show up in so many different ways, but mostly numbing and just completely checking out. Like it's a huge thing, like probably way bigger of a problem than we even realize. So you sometimes disassociate in social situations. Fawning often requires that we shut down emotionally. The less we have distinct feelings of our own, the easier it is to adapt to and accommodate the emotions of other people. You guys, sometimes this can lead to disassociating, where we disconnect emotionally. This can show up as daydreaming, spacing out, withdrawing, or even going blank when we're overwhelmed in social situations. If we just don't know how to please someone, we may check out emotionally or rely on other escapes, numbing mechanisms so that we no longer have to engage. We're more prone to anything that involves disassociation because we're already distancing ourselves from our own emotions for the sake of others. You guys, this is huge. In today's society, we are numbing in so many different ways, like alcohol, drugs, CBD, freaking gambling, video games, scrolling on social media, and even work. Sometimes we keep so busy so we don't have to feel our emotions. And then when we're in social situations, we're checked out because we're on our phones. Like, we are checked out as a society, and everything that I do in my business is to check people back in. Notice what you're feeling. Notice what's going on in your body. Notice what your body is communicating to you. We need that as a society. I've been saying lately, like, we are chronically burnt out as a society. We're burnt out and checked out as a society. We have to check back in for our mental, emotional, and physical health. Period. So this disassociation is huge. It's something I feel really, really, really passionate about. And now realizing that it stems from this Fawn trauma response. That's why I was like so blown away by this concept. So it can be painful to consistently silence yourself and push your emotions away, all while working overtime to anticipate the emotions of others. We can't anticipate the emotions of others. What we have to focus on is our emotions. A couple ways you can avoid this Fawn response is show kindness when you mean it. So the Fawn to fizzle that I mentioned that I realize is my pattern, that's my term that I came up with, Fawn to fizzle, is I was like overly kind, overly complimentary, overly like, I don't want to say affectionate because that's not the right word, but like just overly kind. We'll just leave it at that, because that makes people feel good and they're more likely to like you. And then when I stop doing that, it's an abrupt change. And I think this shows up in dating. Guys do it all the time. Women do it too, but guys do it where they're like overly kind and they're like whining and dining you and giving you all these compliments. And then when it stops, the woman is like, well, why aren't you doing the thing that you were doing before? It's a trauma response. Like legit, it is a trauma response. And men probably do it like, ooh, if I do all these things, she will like me. But then when he stops doing those things, the woman's like, you know, and we take it as, oh, they got the goods and now they don't care as much. But I think it's a deeper issue. I'm realizing it's a deeper issue. It is a trauma response. So showing kindness when you mean it, it's perfectly fine. And it's even a good thing to practice kindness, but being overly confident, overly helpful, overly complimentary to get a person to like you, that's fawning. And it does fizzle out. The fawn to fizzle is real. So being mindful of that and setting boundaries, really getting to know a person first, because I think what I realized, my fawn to fizzle process or pattern, I would dive all the way in with a person. And this is friends, this is business, this is romantic. I dive all the way in and I'm like, oh my God, they're the best thing since sliced bread. And then I get to know them as a human, because we all are human. And then I'm like, oh, they're not as great as I thought that they were. And I'm sure it happens with me too, because I approach situations as like this happy, bubbly person, which is very much so a part of my personality. But then when I get to know the deeper aspects of me, like I'm super introspective, I'm super analytical, I geek out on this type of stuff. So like when people are like, oh my gosh, she likes selfies and glitter and sequins, and then they're like, but she wants to have conversations about trauma responses, they're like, where's that bubbly girl? But I lead with the bubbliness because not everyone wants to have conversations about trauma responses. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast episode, you do, and you geek out on the same things I do. But for the average person, they're like, I don't want to talk about fawn. Like, what the hell? You know, where's the bubbly girl that wears the full sequins? As you can see, I have a very polarizing personality. It's like, I am a lot. I have these polar opposite ends of my personality, and sometimes people don't know how to take me. And I used to take that as a bad thing, like, oh, they don't know how to take me, so they're not gonna like me or they're not gonna love me, so let me hide these parts of me. But I'm like, no, I am diverse and I am fabulous. Like, I can take a selfie and look stunning, and then I can go create a certification that's freaking brilliant. So it's like society has programmed us to shrink. if you're gorgeous and you like selfies, then the stereotype is that you're dumb, you know? But you could be freaking brilliant. But I've seen brilliant people tone down their glamorousness so people don't think they're dumb, because they want to be taken seriously as being brilliant. You can be brilliant and glamorous at the same time. You can be a healer and still like luxury at the same time. Stop allowing society to put you in a box. And if any of this resonated, stop putting yourself in a box. We choose to fawn, we choose to shrink, we choose to tone ourselves down for the comfort of others. And it's a trauma response, so obviously be gentle with yourself. This is not a slap on the wrist. This is saying like, let's take our power back. It's really noisy on the street that my office is on. And I'm on a roll, so I don't want to edit that out if you heard the motorcycle in the background. Let's take our power back. Let's take that motorcycle in the background as confirmation, like, yes, the universe was saying yes in the background with that loud noise. But seriously, stop fawning. Stop fawning. And this is for me too. This message literally is for me. Stop fawning and show people who you are. All of you. All of your parts, even the parts that you think are going to run people away. I like to talk about emotional intelligence and how our brains work and how our energy works and, you know, trauma responses. Some people don't like that. People unfollow me constantly on social media, and it used to hurt my feelings. It did. Like, oh, they like all these people's posts, but like, why don't they like mine? Because some people don't want to hear about trauma. They don't want to hear about emotional intelligence. They don't want to hear about vulnerability. But I'm not going to hide the stuff that I geek out on for the comfort of others. I'm not. I'm done hiding my parts, because these parts that I've hidden for so long, those are parts that make me brilliant. Those are parts that are going to change the freaking world. So own the parts that you think make you unlovable. Me talking too much, I used to think that made me unlovable, and I find myself like, I notice where I'm like super quiet in certain situations, but I'm like, hello, my podcast has listeners in over 20 countries, so someone likes to hear me talk. You know what I mean? What if the parts of you that you've been hiding for the comfort of others are actually your superpowers? What if the opinion that you're hiding because you don't want conflict and you're people pleasing, what if that opinion is your truth that you really need to honor in your next chapter? There's so many layers, and I know that peeling these layers back is uncomfortable. Like, I talk about it with my passion and everything, but I do have a therapist that I speak to about this, and noticing these things about myself sometimes is like, ooh, this is uncomfortable, like looking yourself in the mirror. So definitely be gentle with yourself. Definitely be gentle with yourself. Definitely have a therapist or quality coach that you can go to. Set boundaries, put yourself first, honor what you need. And I know if someone is listening that has children, it's really hard to put yourself first, but I say this all the time. You can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of you first. If your cup becomes depleted, you are no good to anyone. So making sure that you are truly honoring what you need and you are truly keeping your cup full so you have more to give to the people in your life. That is so important. And when it comes to setting boundaries, like, wait until you're asked for help. I realized I did this. I was always trying to be helpful to people. But wait until you're asked for help, or before offering help, ask, how can I support you? So just like me honoring what my friend wanted to do for her birthday, now in my head I'm like, oh my God, taking her to this luxurious spa is going to be like the best experience in her life. But it's like, But is it? Because what she wanted was a hippie party at the beach, hippie boho theme beach party. So there's this fine nuance of honoring what you want, and the more we honor what we want, the more we can honor what other people want. And so honoring what you want, there's this like polarity to this whole concept. Honoring what you want, not people pleasing, and also not like over exerting yourself for other people, especially if they don't ask for help. But it comes from a place of fear of abandonment. If we're super helpful to people, they won't leave us. But it's like, people will still leave you if they want to leave you. So the people that want to be in your life are going to be in your life whether you help them or not. They want your energy and not your help. People can take all the help you give them and still leave, you know? So really setting those healthy boundaries, making sure that everything you do is coming from a grounded place and not a place of, if I'm helpful, this person will like me. If I'm helpful, this person won't leave me. Because that is, honestly, it's really just our inner child wanting to be liked and accepted. And the more that you like and accept your inner child, the less you have patterns like this. And so, I know I said a lot. I am going to put the article 7 Subtle Signs Your Trauma Response is People Pleasing in the show notes. So if you want to read the article and go over the 7 signs that Sam Dylan Finch wrote out without my commentary, you have the option to do so. The link will be in the show notes. It's a really, really amazing article. Grateful for him writing this article and starting the dialogue. Also grateful for Nicole Lewis-Keeber to even bringing this to my awareness. I had no idea. And I think that awareness is half the battle. Once you're aware that this is a pattern, then you can actively choose to replace it with something healthy and something that serves you. So that is my message, M&Ms. I would absolutely love to hear your feedback. If any of this landed with you, if you realize that you have a fawn to fizzle pattern, if you realize you're fawning, if you realize you are people pleasing, if you realize you are shrinking, the first step is awareness, and that's half the battle. So cheers to you for noticing what is no longer serving you and knowing you have the power and the courage to choose a pattern and thought process that is going to serve you and is going to serve your relationships. Because choosing to replace this pattern with a healthy pattern is going to improve every single connection in your life, period. Every single connection in your life. Love on your inner child. Don't people please. Honor your needs and your desires. It will improve every single relationship in your life. And if some people fall away, it's because they were not for you. They were taking advantage of you shrinking. They were taking advantage of your people pleasing. So that process is obviously painful, but what's more painful is betraying yourself. And this is a chapter for self-loyalty. All right, M&Ms, I hope you found value in this. I so appreciate you sticking with me when I get worked up over topics like this. And this is a topic I know I was worked up about, but I always listen back because I know that this is a message that I need to hear. I needed to hear years ago, probably. So I really hope you found value in this, because I think that this is something that a lot of people aren't aware that they do. And if you implement these changes, it's going to change your life. It's going to empower you. And that's what I'm all about. Like, how can we empower ourselves more and truly step into our full potential and live the abundant lives that we desire and that we deserve. You deserve to live an abundant life. So, okay, I can keep going on and on and on about this topic, but I will wrap it up here. Until next time, be decadent. Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.